Straight over there, like.
O'clock, June 14th, 2023. We respectfully acknowledge that the land in which we gather is the unceded traditional territory of the Shishwepnik. Approval of the agenda recommendation that the regular council meeting agenda for June 14th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Councillor Rich, Councillor Evans, all in favor, carried. Adoption of minutes, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 24th, 2023 be adopted. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Rich, all in favor, carried. Okay, so we have no public hearings, no delegations, no bylaws, and here we go, bylaws and policies. The District of Sicamous elected official standard of code bylaw number 1037/2023 adoption. I'll read the recommendation that the District of Sicamous elected official standard of conduct bylaw number 1037/2023 be adopted this 14th day of June 2023. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Beach, discussion. Or first, who's addressing this? Is anyone addressing this? Or we're just gonna, everybody's been over this already? Any more discussion? Let's call the question. All in favor? Carried. District of Sicamous zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 1035/2023 adoption. Recommendation of the District of Sicamous zoning amendment bylaw number 1035/2023 be adopted this 14th day of June 2023. Could I get a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Beach, staff report. Is anyone speaking to this? Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I can go through it all. So at the last council meeting, we had the public hearing and we had third reading. And so then it was sent to Ministry of Transportation for approval. That happened on June 2nd. So council's free to adopt it. I can answer questions or go through the presentation again if anybody's interested.
Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to go through the presentation again? All in favor? Carried. District of Sicamous building regulations amending bylaw number 1040/2023 adoption. Recommendation that the District of Sicamous building regulations amending bylaw number 1040/2023 be adopted this 14th day of June 2023. Councillor Evans, Councillor Bushel, staff. Go ahead, Scott.
Mayor Anderson. So I get this one received 3 readings at the May 24th regular council meeting. So this is to bring in the greenhouse gas emissions step code section into the bylaw. Also some other the minor updates looking at construction value, online applications, some wording around demolition and then an installation inspection. But yeah, I can answer questions if required.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Ian and I opposed. Everyone else is in favor.
And who moved that resolution?
Councillor Evans and Councillor Bushel seconded.
Okay, thank you.
See, it's a good job I'm not drinking right now. Okay, moving along, official community plan bylaw and zoning bylaw amendment, first and second reading. Sarah, do you want to speak to these and then we'll read the recommendations? Or do you want to speak to each one and then we'll read the recommendation? Do you want to do them individually? Because they're 3 different.
So the first one for the zoning bylaw is a recommendation for both first and second reading. The one for the official community plan, we separated out, and that's because before we move to the second reading on those. Amendment bylaw, council needs to consider it against the financial plan. So there's that second recommendation there. Let's see that.
Okay. We'll read the recommendation. Recommendation one, the District of Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw. Number 1038-2023 be given first and second reading this 14th day of June 2023. Did I get a mover? Counselor Rich, Counselor Bushel. Any discussion on this?
Oh, okay, so, hold on.
Go ahead, Counselor Bailey.
Yeah, have a question on why are we eliminating from the R1 the floor area?
Madam Chair, I do have a presentation around those.
Oh,
Okay, so. Okay, so we've got a first mover and a seconder on the first recommendation. Do you want to go through the presentation and then we'll just carry on from there?
All right, sorry, I'm just eyeballing Scott here because he's running this slide. So just a brief recap from the community development meeting.
So Sarah, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak up. Actually, Daryl, that mic is giving us some bad feedback.
Trying to find it. No, but where I'm.
Oh, you're on the first one.
Here and speaking to this mic, Sarah.
Here. It looks like there's 3 recommendations.
I don't know the difference between.
hey Daryl, do you want to mute that one and I'll give it?
I don't either.
Okay, good.
No, it's complicated, right?
Looks the same, I don't know.
Batteries in this one.
Okay, this one's good.
That's how this rolls.
Press that button.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy.
There we go.
You okay?
You can do it right from there if you want.
Ah,
Oh, does it, oh, sorry, that's not gonna work.
You can put it on the stand.
We're gonna pay.
Yeah, the first recommendation.
Yeah. Am I not getting us?
Hello?
For the technical difficulties.
It's not any better.
Not any better?
Okay,
Talk loud.
go really loud, talk really loud.
All right,
Okay,
good, okay. So just a quick recap from the housing strategy, which is where this zoning amendment and OCP amendment bylaws are coming from. It's coming from a few of our short-term actions that the housing committee laid out in that strategy. So update the R1 zone, update residential policies of the official community plan, update our residential land use designations in our mapping, and update the multifamily development permit area guidelines. So with the zoning bylaw amendment, what we were doing with the R1 zone was increasing the density in that zone. So that zone currently allows single family dwellings and duplexes, and it allows them to have one. Sorry, I'm just trying to minimize some things that are popping up on my screen here. So it allows each dwelling unit currently to have one secondary dwelling. What this proposed change is proposing is to actually increase to a density of 4 in a gentle density approach, where if you have a single family home on the property, you could have up to 3 single secondary dwelling units. And if you had a duplex, each half of that duplex would be able to have 1 secondary dwelling. So in either scenario, there's a total density of 4 units. So the reason this particular floor area regulation was pulled out, this is a regulation that was initially added into the R1 zone to help address issues. I'm sorry about the feedback, everyone. Issues with accessory buildings going into our residential areas that residents were complaining about because they felt rural and industrial or agricultural. They were very big. And because we want to allow people to have coach houses, we didn't want to put a limit on the floor area of the habitable portion of that coach house, but we did want to try to find a way to prevent that building from getting overly large. So we had introduced in a restriction to the floor area of the garage to 80 square meters, but we've taken it out Because we'd like to give this some time to roll it out and kind of see more examples of what we're going to get. And take a more step back a little bit and take a slightly different approach potentially to how that's regulated. So I'd like to stick a pin in that and come back to it. And see how the secondary dwelling program rolls out and what it ends up looking like for this community. So we backed off that. And that's the only thing that changed with that R1 zone since the committee of the whole. And we did discuss that. I did discuss that with the housing committee and they didn't seem to have any issues with that. They were supportive of it.
Sarah, can you share your screen?
So I'm just gonna get Scott to work his laptop.
While we're at this commercial break. Maybe, never mind.
Okay, so moving along to the proposed official community plan amendments. So that is still the same, generally speaking, as to what was presented at the committee of the whole. There were a few more revisions to tighten it up just to make sure we had consistency of terms. There's still a few terms in there like carriage house, but the term in our new zoning bylaw is coach house. So just wanted to align those so that we're talking about the same thing. The other change here, as far as redlining, was we held back the multifamily development permit area because there's still some discussion around how we see that applying at subdivision. So we just wanted to hang on to that and we'll come back with that this year. Along with like some other, you'll probably see some other bylaw changes in that streamlining this process. Because that's what it's about, is trying to build in appropriate exemptions to help make building housing easier. So that was the change there. So just kind of moving along here, I just want to talk about the schedule to the official community plan bylaw amendment, and that is an update to the land use mapping. So this is what we have currently. You can kind of see in the oval area, the tan colored smaller parcels. Those are our residential areas. And these are areas that we did do a survey on as part of our housing strategy consultation to get an idea of where people were comfortable with seeing additional density in a gentle density format. So this is the proposed new Schedule A that goes along with that bylaw, where we expand the medium density land use designation into these particular neighborhoods. These ones are ones that they're pre-serviced. They're generally in much less hazardous areas. They're more readily developable. There's a lot more space on these parcels, so there's tons of room for additional density in there without necessarily adding cost or adding risk in terms of moving it into areas that are close to our wildfire interface area or into steep slope hazard areas or debris flow areas. So these are our safer locations. So in terms of consultation, this has been talked about at the Housing Committee a few times, and I think you've seen these recommendations before. So we've got the recommendation that, council and direct staff to implement the housing strategy. And then we've got a couple different meetings where we talked about these proposed amendments. So one in April and one in June. So just last week where we talked about these minor changes. Planning and Development Committee recommendations. This is from May. They recommended that council move forward with these. And then as far as internal departments, we've talked extensively with operations and engineering about this to make sure that what we're doing as far as the R1 zone is supportable with our existing infrastructure and our existing capacity. And so they've got their comments on here. They're confident that, this moderate increase in density at this point can be accommodated with our existing infrastructure as far as our facility for water treatment and sewer treatment. So the other component of this is the change to the official community plan. I just want to highlight for council that that is not we're not implementing zoning. We're just implementing an updated land use designation that removes an extra step if someone wants to come forward to change zoning. And then we do have other projects underway that we keep the housing committee abreast of, where we're looking into where we can safely pre-zone for slightly different building types. So instead of talking about secondary dwellings, we'll be talking about townhouses or houseplexes. And so those are some things that, you know, we're putting in an application to, for example, UBCM for funding this week to do an analysis based on our existing servicing and where we're looking at doing this change in our land use designations to kind of identify areas where it'll be readily implemented without adding too much extra burden onto our system, community water, community sewer. And these were the rest of the recommendations. Thank you.
All right, does council have any questions? Councillor Bailey?
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm still not really understanding why we take out the 80 square meters. Because that's all we're saying is that's the upper limit versus not giving any limit or any guidelines at all. I'm not quite clear why we would take that out.
Through the chair. I don't think this is working anymore. It's
Got it all.
Yeah, it's
We set it up a long time ago.
Yeah.
We've been talking to it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're funny that way.
Yeah.
Trickers.
Okay, so the reason we just kind of let that out is because we kind of wanted to just revisit this. So we're getting a few applications coming in for conversions of existing buildings. And that's where we kind of want to just kind of take a pause and look. So we have an existing restriction in our general regulations for accessory buildings in general that is currently applying to also capturing secondary dwelling units, coach houses. And so this idea with the 80 square meters was to try and kind of rectify that. This would only be in that R1 zone though. And there are other zones like our country residential or our A1 zone that also allow these. So we just wanted to just kind of put a pause on that. Like I said, see what else we get. Right now there's 100 square meter floor area restriction on there. And just kind of see more what it looks like. So I've got one right now where the floor plan looks totally reasonable. The building doesn't seem to be too big or bulky in scale. And if they hadn't already had a variance, they would need a variance from 100 square meters to 187 for this coach house. So this was the reason why. Just kind of step back and kind of work through a few more case by case examples before kind of pulling the trigger on that.
So, okay, I'm still thinking like, why don't we just have the 80 and then we can still do all the things that you're talking about? It gives people a bit of a guideline, but anyways, I can come back to that. Just another question. I brought it up at planning and development was the surface area being capped at 40%. That's one I still haven't got my head wrapped around that, why we're putting that 40% in there. I know the permittable area is 60%, so asphalts, things like that. Why just at 40%? Like that one just seems to me rather low for the density we're trying to get on these lots, right? If you're going to put 4 different units or potentially 4 different units, which the province has already kind of allowed that, and we're putting in a cap of 40% of the buildable lot. Why? Why not like a higher cap? Why not 50 or 60?
So through the chair, the first reason is that we do not have community storm sewer here that everyone can plumb their liters off their house into in terms of dealing with stormwater. So you're right, we do have a 60% cap to ensure, right, that there's still enough bare ground to help absorb and infiltrate the stormwater runoff. So that's one reason. 40% has always worked pretty good. The second reason is that our current lots, they're pretty big, like we already know. And most of them, they're nowhere near 40% parcel coverage right now. And those lots under our new zoning bylaw, they can all be split in half. So hypothetically, we're actually talking about a higher parcel coverage. Once you split it in half, they each have 40. There's still a fair amount of room there. The other thing it does is helps kind of mitigate massing and bulking. So it'll encourage these units to be clustered or stacked or within existing dwellings, so that to help limit the aesthetic impacts on the neighborhood or too much change the character of the neighborhood, right? So generally, we're trying not to make it feel super urban. We're trying to kind of work with what we have. So, but of course, it's up to council.
Counselor Bailey.
Yeah, just one more. Well, okay, thank you for that. The one thing about limiting it to the 40% surface area, correct me if I'm wrong, is to get more density, you got to go up. And, you know, if we're talking like, if we're looking at form of character in a neighborhood, a density that goes higher, and you can see some of these infill examples, is that's where you get the units. You can stack them on top of each other. So you're taking potentially an area with one kind of look, and you're allowing it to morph into another. I mean, there's many different examples. So that's why I question whether we should be going with the 40 and not allowing a little bit more surface area to be covered to make sure we're not just going for height when we go for the density. That's my only point on that, so.
Sarah, did you want to? No? Counselor Bushel?
Yeah, we discussed this earlier. Yeah, good points. I mean, I remember when we had the old bylaw and we were every garage, when somebody wanted to put up, they had to come to council to get a variance for because they were small. So we decided to go bigger garages. And 80, you know, and I know we made a mistake or however it ever happened, how they were able to put that big Quonset in across from Parksville. And that shouldn't have happened in a residential lot like that, because it actually dwarfs the house kind of thing. You know, but I do think the 80 square meters is pretty, you know, we have big lots and we have recreation and people bring houseboats or maybe not houseboats, sorry.
That didn't work.
Apparently not.
Big boats, things like that, and they like to put them in their garages. And if the lots are big enough, you know, 80 square meters is, you know, I think it goes well for the community. That's my.
Counselor McCabe?
Yeah, I think, you know, stick with the 40 and on a case by case basis, if they need a little more, they can ask for a variance.
Counselor Bushel?
For the
Surface area.
Surface area.
surface area, yeah. Well.
I was talking opposite of what you were talking.
Yeah. I guess it can happen, but you just, you know, you end up getting lots of variances. And that's what we had before with the 80 square meters. Every garage we had, they were bringing us one bigger garage.
Counselor Rich?
Through the chair, I mean, I think we need to come up with a decision and stick to it. What we want to see and same, I feel kind of with the wait and see. You don't need people applying, they get one thing, then we change all the rules, and then the next guy down the line, we're like, hey, we changed the rules, or we're just doing variance after variance. I think we have to decide what we want the town to look like, how we're going to use our lots, and then make our rules. And if they don't work for the community, we'll hear from the community and then move forward. But I don't think we should be doing variance after variance after variance. That's it.
Counselor McCabe?
Well, staff is recommending, you know, this bylaw, so. I'd say try, you know, go with the total square footage of 40% on the lot for building,
But that's, sorry,
see how it works.
that's going to create a lot of variances, I think, to Counselor Rich's point. It's
It may, Sarah says it wouldn't, if they split the lot, you're actually getting more coverage. Because then you're 40% on each lot. And
good.
I think generally the lots, the parcels in the tree streets are 1/4 acre lots. That's, 10,000 square feet, so. You're looking at a 4,000 square foot home it's pretty big, like, probably most of the homes aren't even close to 2,000 square feet, so. There's a lot of parcel coverage available out there.
Counselor Bailey.
So I just like to point out, though, that percent coverage, we had that under the old R1 zone. We're now, when we're talking about R1 zoning, we have to think R1 zoning is really 4 units, because that's what it is. Any R1 can have 4 units on it now, built within the surface areas and the rest of our rules. That's a provincial rule. So this coverage area that we used to use for basically a single family home with a basement or whatever, or garage, I'm just thinking it might be a little outdated, because we're talking about 4 units on each one of these lots is what's being allowed. So, yeah, that's why I question the 40%. The other thing is, if we're gonna just leave everything the same and we're gonna do a little wait see, then we should keep the 80 square meter in, because that's what is already currently there. And we'll see how that kind of plays out as we go forward. Like, I think I agree with Councilor Rich. It's kind of like we're gonna, settle on something, then let's settle. But then we don't tweak the rest of the stuff that we already have in place, right? It's either we change it now, or we just should leave it the same, is my opinion.
Counselor Rich. Sorry, then Sarah.
Through the chair. I mean, we're talking about infill in the tree streets. I don't know if there's a vacant lot left in the tree streets. Like, I'm trying to think, Gord, you might know more than I do. So we're not knocking houses over and putting up fourplexes. The houses are from mostly the 80s and going up. But I would say most of the houses are the 80s. So where you're building is you're building on what used to be septic areas. And a lot of those houses are central on the lot. So, we're not knocking them down and putting fourplexes. I think the way things will happen is either someone subdivides the interior of a house and puts in a couple suites and then, has their living space, or they put not a cottage house, a carriage house, not a carriage house, coach house in the back with a couple suites and has to go up that way, or builds onto a garage. But you're not going to get the way the houses are in the tree streets, you're not, and I can't see someone knocking down a perfectly good house.
Sarah, go ahead, and then Scott, sorry.
Through the chair. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more data for everyone. So in terms of current parcel coverages, they're around 20 to 28% normally, like when we go and we check when somebody's making an application. So like, there's still a lot of room on those properties. And we did take a tour last week with the housing committee and had a good look in these neighborhoods, and actually popped into a backyard and had a look at one property where, we looked at it and it's like, what, like there's actually room here for these folks to have more than what they have. So they have a coach house. They've got like this whole addition on one side. It's a garage that could become a secondary dwelling. And then this coach house hypothetically could be converted into the garage space there and an additional secondary dwelling. So that's 3 right there, and a single family home. And I also wanted to point out this one. So we went on a tour of some specific properties with different building typologies, just so that, the committee could see what was already out there, because we're doing this EOI right now. And there's a house on Pine Street that I think some of us are familiar with. And this was highlighted because this actually has a very high density on it, but you wouldn't know it. And it's not over parcel coverage. It has adequate parking, more than enough. I've never seen any parking issues there. I live in the neighborhood, and it still has a great amount of open space in the backyard. And this would definitely fit what we're talking about in terms of parcel coverage setbacks with this new zone, this one on Pine. Wanted to highlight that.
Scott.
Right now, just back to Councilor Bailey's question, the square meters. So right now, the maximum size of an accessory building is 100 square meters. The 80 isn't actually in there. And what we've taken out is the first proposal was to actually add the 80 in. And Stephanie and Sarah and I sat down and we sketched out what that would look like and kind of drew like, this is 80 with the minimum size of the suite and maximum size of the suite. And my recommendation to Sarah was to take out the limit of 80, leave it at 100, just because it was my recommendation to Sarah to just pull that 80 out and leave it at 100, just to maintain what's there, what exists now in bylaw.
So it's 100, this in bylaw one. Okay, sorry, I read it as that it was 80. Just one other point, going back to the service area, since we're bouncing this back and forth a little bit. Didn't we just have a variance because we went over the service area? And it was on, what road was it on? It was on it's over here by Silver Sands. I think we had a variance because it went over the surface area, and the actual coach property that we approved is in the front of the house as well.
Go ahead, Scott.
So on Silver Sands, that was a DVP that was issued, or DVP that was issued earlier. That was actually for the size of the unit, so the unit would only be 40%, and that unit was 47% the size of the original unit. So that wasn't the partial coverage, the goodness of partial coverage, it was the actual size of the secondary unit.
Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, no, I misinterpreted too. I thought it was 80. So, I do like what you're doing is, making these more dense, and that's what we need so we can get more stock. Yeah, no, that's good.
Any other comments? Sarah, do you want to go over our recommendations here and explain the difference? Because we've got a couple questions.
For sure. So the first recommendation here is for the zoning amendment bylaw, and that's a recommendation to give first and second reading. That one's not confusing, I don't think, I hope. The second and third one are for the official community plan amendment. And the reason that there are two is because prior to second reading, council giving second reading, council has to consider the amendment against the financial plan. So the second recommendation is to give it first reading and consider it in conjunction with the financial plan. And then, if council passes that resolution, then they could move on to the recommendation 3, which is to give it second reading.
But
Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
recommendation number 2 says first and second reading.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Error, that was an error. So it should have it was updated. I don't know why it wouldn't show on yours, but it's just for
First reading.
first reading, and then the third recommendation is for second.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then the third reading is,
Third will happen after public hearing, and we'll do that next.
okay, so okay, sorry, go
Through
ahead,
the
Sarah.
chair. So you have a mover and a seconder for the first recommendation for first and second reading of the zoning amending bylaw.
So do we want to,
Pass each one.
Separately, correct, through the chair. So you have a
Each
mover and
one.
seconder. So if there's any,
each one we're doing individually? Okay, so, any more conversation on recommendation 1? Got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Carried. Recommendation 2, the District of Sicamous Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw numbers 1039/2023 be given first reading this 14th day of June 2023. Could I get a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Bushel. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Carried. Oh, sorry. And that the District of Sicamous Official Community Plan Bylaw number 1039/2023 be considered in conjunction with the financial plan. Sorry, that was part of that. Okay. Is everybody okay with how that rolled? Okay, good. Okay, recommendation 3, that the District of Sicamous Official Community Plan Bylaw number 1039/2023 be given second reading this 14th day of June 2023. Councillor Evans, Councillor Beach. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Wow, that wasn't complicated. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Staff reports, development permit number 23-159-DP, Sycamoose Creek frontage. Recommendation that council authorize and issue development permit number 23-159-DP for the property legally described as legal subdivision 12 of section 19 containing 38.30 acres more or less, township 21, range 7, west of the 6th meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District. Except they're from the land covered by the waters of Merrill Lake at the time of new survey of said lake except plan H741 located at 01 Sycamoose Creek frontage road to facilitate a 14 parcel residential subdivision. Could I get a mover? Counselor Rich, Counselor Bushel, staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. The one good thing about the subdivision is they'll get new subdivision plans and it'll be a lot number and a plan and without all that extra wording. Be a good thing. I think Grayson is online. He's the applicant in this case. And yeah, this is a application for a development permit. That's a watercourse development permit within 30 meters of any watercourse. You need to apply for a watercourse development permit, and staff's recommending that this be approved because the correct riparian area protection regulation assessment was submitted, accepted, and approved by the province. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this property by now. It's at the very southern end of the property, just below the Montcalm subdivision. The official community plan designation, low density residential, and then the zone. So in the new zoning bylaw, it's zoned R1, and you can actually see where the creek is on that property. And so north of the creek is R1, south of the creek would be C4. So here's the assessment that was the drawing from the assessment. The setback that was recommended was between 10 and 10.3 meters for Wiseman Creek and 15 meters from Mirror Lake. And yeah, the idea is to subdivide and create 14 parcels where you can put a single family dwelling or a coach house if you want on it. The conditions of the permit. So again, those setbacks, protection of trees, stormwater management, no encroachment into the SPIA during construction, some requirements for fencing and signs, just to let people know that that's a protected area, and then environmental monitoring during construction. Again, this is, yeah, I think council's seen this a couple times, working with Grayson on this. Yeah, still a couple more steps to go to complete the subdivision, but this part is looks good, and staff's recommending that the development issue.
Thank you, Scott. Council, any questions, any comments? Okay, let's call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Scott. Recommendation that council authorize and issue development variance permit number 23-170-DVP for the property legally described as lot 48, section 19, township 21, range 7, west. They could use some commas in here. West of the 6th meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District, plan 12788, located at 01 Montcalm present to Ferry Sycamoose zoning bylaw number 1000, 2022, section 3.44B. The maximum parcel cover from 100 meters squared to 111.1 meters squared for the accessory building. 1,000, I would suspect. Can I get a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Bushel. Scott, do you want to?
And thank you, Mayor Anderson. So this is an application for a variance for an accessory building. Staff's recommending that it be issued. It's kind of timely to go with our previous discussion. So here's the property, number 1 Montcalm Crescent. Single family dwelling has been constructed on that property. It's zoned residential low density, and it's R1 in the zone. I believe Chris may be online. He's the applicant. But here you can see what this parcel looks like. So there's an existing residence and then a proposed shop. And so the current maximum size of an accessory building is 100 square meters. So they're looking to go to 111.1 square meters. So yeah, this is what your regular law would look like. Kind of goes with our previous discussion with the two the residence and then the property. And you can see the lot coverage is about 20%. So 40% would, you could almost double the size of each of the buildings and you'd still be under the parcel. And maybe going back to Councillor Bushell's comments about the Quonset. So in this case, the question came up at planning and development, why do we even care if it's 100 square meters? And it's really to avoid buildings that look too big or that don't fit with the neighborhood. So we included this drawing. It just shows the elevation of the building. So if someone wants to go bigger than 100 square meters, comes to our committee, we can look at it, we can look at the form and character of the building, and we can say, yeah, that 100 square meter building will fit with the character of the neighborhood. We sent this out for referrals. Planning and Development Committee recommended it be reviewed. No concerns, and no comments from any of the other departments. We did circulate to neighbors in the neighborhood, and we didn't receive anything from any of the adjacent neighbors. And it's a big building, but he wants to put his boat and his other toys in there and it fits with the scale of the neighborhood. So staff's recommending that this DVP be issued.
Council, any comments, concerns, questions? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Scott. Okay, moving along. 1138 Riverside Avenue, portion of lease agreement, Eagle Valley Dragon Boaters Society. Recommendation that the mayor and corporate office be authorized to enter into a lease agreement with the Eagle Valley Dragon Boaters Society for the use of a portion of land legally described as Plan 36767 LD 25 located at 1138 Riverside Avenue. Can I get a mover? Councillor Rich, Councillor Beach. Any discussion? I do have a quick question, sorry. This is Main Street Landing. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, through the chair. So this is really a housekeeping item. Upon reviewing the agreement, the lease agreement that is held between the district and the Eagle Valley Dragon Boater Society, we realized that it has reverted month to month. So the last signed agreement is from 2014. It was for 5 years. The first agreement dates back to 2006. And so really, we've just reviewed with the president of the society, Tina, and indicated other locations where there is they utilize space. So there's a shed there that you can see that Kelly's pointing out for storage of life jackets and other items. There's dry land storage there on the foreshore, and then storage as to where it is located now for when they go out on the water on the Main Street wharf. So that's been updated. We've changed a couple of other things in the agreement. So the commencement date is being changed to June 1st. And then just making sure that there's compliance, that they provide us with their insurance policies. And of course, they pay $1 a year to the district for use of the space. So really, it is just a housekeeping item and wanting to make sure that we have all those things tidied up.
Any comments? Everybody's good? Oh, Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, but I think Sarah answered it. I was wondering about the insurance that they harmless for the district and.
Yeah.
And my second question would be parking. We have, I don't know, maybe 6 stalls there. So if you get 8 people in the boat, there goes our parking for our day use marina. Is there anything in there, anything speaking to parking?
Through the chair, there is nothing indicated regarding parking. I know Daryl and I spoke about the agreement and he's had no concerns with the use of the space. I don't know that we've had any complaints around parking.
Just a question.
Yeah. And the insurance, yes, they name the district as an additional insured.
Councillor Bushell.
Pam's been bouncing off her chair over there.
That's it. Go ahead. I'll get to Pam.
Say they go so early in the morning. By the time you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, the parking lot's.
Yeah. I hear them shouting at like 6.
Like they're dragon boating.
Go ahead, Councillor Rich.
Through the chair, so this is another 5-year agreement?
Correct.
Will this affect anything about the boathouse that we don't have? We don't know where it's going yet. So if we're going into a 5-year contract.
Good point.
Good question.
Yep.
Through the chair, Daryl, do you have any comments on that?
Through the chair, I guess it's a valid question. I mean, there's been some talk of the boathouse, but there's nothing officially planned, so.
So having said that, could we just change this to 1 year for now and then review it next year once we realize where the search and rescue boathouse is going to be?
Through the chair, I believe there is a clause in there regarding termination of the contract, and I think there's notice, is it 30 days?
I think so.
Termination notice.
I normally have a really easy out.
Yeah.
Bear with them.
Maybe it should have a date, though. If there is a clause in here for 30-day, maybe it should have a date, though, because then there's no surprises and you're not saying, you know what, we're moving something here in 30 days. So you need to go find somewhere else. Like,
Can I just?
go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Maybe just put a 90-day clause in there because we're gonna know, we're gonna know well in advance of that. Just say 90-day clause and that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, better than, yeah. Okay. Oh, are we amending that or what do we need to do with that? We need to make a friendly amendment.
To the chair, I don't think we need to. We can make that change.
Okay.
We'll make the amendment.
Yep.
Yep. Council's good with that? Councillor Evans.
I do think with inflation being a thing that we should be charging them $2, but.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Bushel.
And just so, you know, through the chair, in case, I don't know if anybody's online, that's in the Dragon Boat group. There is tons of room there for search and rescue and them, so it's not like they're gonna have to move somewhere. There's room for them, so, you know.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, yeah. Okay. Okay, let's call the question. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay. Resolutions. Level 3 building official service provider agreement. Recommendation that council approve the service provider agreement for building inspection between the District of Sycamoose and Donald Godabed.
What?
This 14th day of June 2020. What's his, I'm sorry, I probably mispronounced his last. It is go to bed. I don't know. I would think it's go to bed.
Not a bad,
I go to bed.
not a bad one.
And okay, sorry, Donald, for messing up your name here. This 14th day of June 2023. Could I have a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor McCabe, any questions? Discussion? Go ahead, Kelly.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Just for some clarity, I know at the last council meeting, we had the same resolution for a different contract building inspector. This is for that building inspector is a level 1. Donald Godabed is a level 3 building inspector. And we do have like the daycare and other items that we need a level 3 building inspector for. So this is to provide coverage on that level 3. And we provide MI insurance for him to do his building, his services. So we had this on the agenda regardless. Also, just to let everybody know is that the previous building inspector who we just started a contract with has given 2 weeks notice, has accepted a full-time job somewhere else. So Donald will be helping us out for a few days a week moving forward until we can find a long-term solution. And he has worked for us before. He actually provides contract work for the city of Armstrong, and he's helped us out previously when we've had to contract out. So he's somewhat familiar with Sycamoose.
All right. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, Shuswap Healing Center, construction design, recommendation that council authorize phase 2 of the Shuswap Healing Center design for the development of construction documents as presented by Scott Builders Inc. this 14th day of June 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Beach, Councillor McCabe, Kelly, you want to give us a quick update?
Yes, so I'm not sure when, but a while back, we approved pre-construction costs of $650,000 for healthcare consulting, architect work, all these drawings. So we've only spent a couple $100,000 of that, and the remaining is this piece that we're talking about today, which is the construction drawings, mechanical, electrical, civil, all the engineering related to that. So we had been using Douglas Cardinal as an architect, so he's designed the building. And so what Scott Builders has done is now that the building is designed, we are switching architects and related engineers underneath the architect. And so instead of it being $436,000, it's going to be $327,000. So it's about $110,000 savings by getting to use Douglas Cardinal for the design, but then now some more of the detail stuff, we don't have to use him and his team. We can use a more localized team and do some cost savings. So proceeding forward with this phase will allow us to get construction drawings for the shell of the building. The goal will be, once this is approved in 90 days, we will have a Class A estimate for the building. So we will be able to nail down the costs of the building. And then while we're doing that, we need to firm up in September, we need to firm up some interior stuff. So we'll be working on that over the next few months while the contractors are getting the shell building. So it's good to go. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So once, if this is green lighted here today, then they will start on the construction drawings and that will be brought back forward to council and for the building permit and everything else.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Council, any questions? Any discussion? All in favor? A deal.
Excellent.
Okay. Correspondence. Kelly, I'm going to let you take that first one with the Bus Stop Bistro.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. So this is for 109 Finlayson Street. So Natalie, the owner of the Bus Stop Bistro, she leases the space from us and she's applying for a liquor license. Because it's a mobile vendor, it's a little bit unusual. And so, and they are asking some questions and they have requested, and it would help support her getting a liquor license if we would draft a letter of support indicating that we are fine with the liquor license. The liquor license normally requires a council resolution, and that will be coming back for a formal resolution. This is just to even get to that point. So if council high level approves a letter of support for the Bus Stop Bistro to have a liquor license, that's up to you today. That's her request.
Thank you. We'll just spin around the room. Councillor Bailey.
Well, I know a little bit about liquor licenses. So I hope Natalie gets a liquor license, but it's in the act that food trucks aren't eligible to get a liquor license, right? Anything that's mobile and isn't actually a physical building, according to the Provincial Liquor Act, does not apply. I understand that she has no intentions on moving it, but I'm a little wary of council giving support letters when we're actually not required to. Council is only required to give support for a liquor primary license, not food primary licenses, which this is. And if we start doing this, then others could come forward and say, hey, I want to have a liquor license for X number of different reasons. Would you give us a support letter? I hope she gets it. I personally think she should, but I also don't want to create a precedent where we're doing this as going to the liquor branch when we actually don't have a formal role as part of their process for a food primary license and doing this. So I just caution that a little bit. When it comes to liquor primary, council always has to give the blessing, right? Which means basically a liquor primary is a bar where the minimal service would be food. So that has some implications for the community. But this is, I certainly hope she gets it, but council should be aware that in the act, it's really explicit that food trucks wouldn't.
And I'm going to comment to that. And I agree. It is a fenced area though, and Natalie does not move her vehicle. And the property that she is on is the district of Sycamoose property. So I think that it's not a big ask for her to ask our permission or get a support letter or because it's our land. So this is an unusual situation. It's not just a regular situation, and it's not a mobile truck, and the property's owned. So Councillor Evanson, Councillor McCabe.
I think you just, thank you, Ms. Mayor. I think you might have just answered my question. So the bus doesn't move. It's enclosed and it's permanent. So is it bordering on becoming a permanent, not just a food truck? In the sense of, that's why I don't have a problem with it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's pretty close. And is there any way that we can help her with that, in the sense of, it's not a word, but permanentizing her operation there so that it's, I'm asking questions. Yeah.
Councillor McCabe.
Listening to what Councillor Bailey said and listening. And good point about precedent, but I think because like the mayor mentioned, it's leased land that we own. And so I think that could avoid a precedent for any other portable food vendor, because that's the only one we own. Unless someone, yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna support it.
Councillor Rich.
Through the chair, wasn't the bus stop up 2 years ago at one of the Owlhead? So it is movable. I mean, it is a food truck. It isn't permanent, so I think we shouldn't say it's permanent because it's not. I mean, she could move that out of there at any point. It's not like taking the Red Barn. So it's not that I'm not in favor of the liquor license, but I don't think that we should be like, just, it's not a letter of support that I would support. I think that the liquor board will look at it and make their decision.
Councillor Evans.
It was one more question. I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but when it comes to, for instance, when we have, when Main Street was lit up with, that motorcycle festival we used to do, there was the small family portion of it, and there was a beer garden on 200 Main that we owned. That's the same kind of thing that we're give permission for that.
No,
You need to keep permission for that. Okay.
Totally different.
I can answer it. It's a special occasion license, a one-term thing, and then there's rules like that you have to do.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question to Kelly. And that is, I know that the bus stop went to Owl's Head for 1 year and it was not a success. So she won't do that again. However, so she is planting her tires in a different space. However, my question here is if the license is to the bus, correct? So if the bus moved, if she gave notice on our lease on our land and moved it somewhere else, does she keep the liquor license?
Yeah, so when you get a liquor license, it is to the physical location. You have to have an occupancy number, like how many, so for example, let's use the Narrows. We have a number, how many people were allowed in there. We have to lay out the exact area where the tables are, how many people are at the tables. The liquor inspector will also come in and look at line of sights. They'll look at bathroom facilities. They'll look at a whole bunch of things to ensure the overall compliance of the rules around the food primary license, right? And, you know, in general, the food primary license is that you're selling more food than you are liquor. That's the difference between the two. And then you're allowed to have minors and all these other things. Typically also, they'll look, do you have table service, right? Food primaries, they don't like you to have liquor served from a bar and the patron to go take it to the table. It's not out of the question, but typically as part of your food primary license, they want you to have control over there. And that's asking for ID and not over serving, all of these different things that come into play. So it's a little bit more complicated than just, you know, here's a site, she's not going to move a truck. They're going to look at all these other different aspects to the application. That's why I said I don't feel comfortable wading into this for this particular thing. I hope she gets it. I think it's going to be problematic because the branch will look at it. Yes, it can be moved. And then once it's moved off that site, there's the license can't go with it because well, where are you gonna operate that license from, right? Because all of a sudden it comes off of a secure location.
So okay, Counselor Bushel and then Kelly.
I'm just gonna say, there's not nobody like really close by. And could you not just provide a support letter and say at that location? Like it cannot be, it's at that location. And once it's moved, or I don't know how you say it in the letter, but it would be
Only location.
at that location. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Kathleen,
In her letter, she's saying in particular, this is what she wants confirmation of. In particular, confirmation that 109 Finlayson and surrounding properties are slated to remain commercially zoned for the purpose of the community plan. So it's commercially zoned property, and that the Bus Stop Bistro has paid for all the leasehold improvements to the property, showing that we have a financial interest in those. So it's not just like there are leaseholds around that. And finally, that council views the Bus Stop Bistro as an asset to the business community. I hope it does. So this is where we can kind of skirt around this letter of support. We can say that we confirm that this property leases from the district of Sicamous. The zoning is commercial. They have spent money on leasehold improvements. And, you know, we view it as an asset to our community. Right? So just more confirming that it's not necessarily a letter of support, but it's a letter confirming, you know, the details of the lease and how she fits into Sicamous.
And I think there is a first right, I think if the property goes up for sale, I think they have first right of refusal on it.
Correct.
Okay, so is everyone comfortable with that
Mhm.
letter?
That's better.
Yeah.
Good? Good. Sarah?
Is there someone that will move, write the letter?
I will.
Okay,
To write a support letter outlining that it's an asset to the community, that she is planning to be there. And you can even highlight that the area is, you know, secure, right? Because that's one of the things that.
Fully fenced.
Fully fenced. So, you know, things like that I have no problem with, and I hope they do take that into account.
perfect. And Pam will second that. And all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving right along. Correspondence information. Council, does anyone want to speak to any of this correspondence? Watershed Council Annual Report, Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure.
I will.
Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
On the bike rebate, I seen on the news that the program crashed in the first week and.
Oh, really?
But also part of this letter is suggesting that if any local government wants to rebate, how are they putting it here? There's also an option for Indigenous and local governments to provide supplemental funding through the program for rebates reserved for your local residents. What is that? Is that additional funding that we can get as a municipality to supplement the e-bike program even more?
For the residents of,
I'm curious what that is. Maybe Kelly or Daryl might know. Is that something we want to get interested as municipality if we can get funding to further supplement the e-bike rebate program? Is that what that letter is suggesting?
I don't know. So I'm just waiting to see if Kelly or Daryl can.
We can take it as an information request and look into it.
Yeah, could you? Okay, perfect. Councillor Evans, do you have something that you want to add?
About the e-bike or something else? Not about.
Okay, I saw a hand. Okay, so that's good. Yeah. Okay. And just going down the list, council, anything you want to, Councillor McCabe?
There's the Slatson Indigenous, National Indigenous Peoples' Day on June 21st. We should probably mark that on our calendar.
I think we do already have that in
Do we?
our, it's already on our calendar.
There you go.
Where have you
Way
been?
ahead of me.
Yep. Yep, June the 21st.
Okay.
Look at us go. Anything else? Counselor Evans.
But my question about that event was. I've got it, that it's on the 21st, but there's no time or anything. I'm wondering. That there's no
Probably more to come.
more.
There's more.
A week?
Mhm.
Okay. Just in a week, though. Somebody let me know what to do, where to go, when to go.
We'll let you know when we know.
Thanks.
You're on a need to know basis right now. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let's have public input. Ed, Mary, any questions? Brian? Go ahead, Ed.
Last weekend, Jake had a ball tournament. And the umpires stayed in your units by the rec center there. And every one of them loved where they were staying. It was so close to Sycamores. And that, they just walked to the dining room, football and that. And also the players, all the teams stayed in Sycamores. You heard about the new park that's going in at the Paradise. So they're gonna stay there next year. And that's so it's bringing everyone into Sycamores. The hotels were full, everything, and Jake did a hell of a job with it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Excellent. Good for Jake. Perfect. No, that's a good news story. Go ahead, Mary.
This is a very wide topic because of housing. Like, I don't understand what you're all talking about, this square footage, that square footage. It would be nice to see it put down. It seems like the baby boomers are the seniors. And the young people are with children without maybe a place to live. Like, are they gonna be a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom? Like these cottage houses in the back of the house, are they for their own family? Are they gonna be rented out? It would be nice to see a breakdown of simplified, so people could understand what's all being talked about.
Malcolm Chavandu, one of you want to address?
Well, it's probably staff, but it's the individual property owners there, Mary. It's their choice what they put on there. We
Right.
don't dictate that.
Okay, so that could be for their family, or they could rent it out.
Yes.
Okay, so what about this housing where the humanity they're not involved anymore, so.
But-
No, that's go.
But people
ahead.
ask about it and you don't want it.
Yeah, so we
You answer it.
talked about that at our committee, the whole earlier today. And staff is putting out an expression of interest to see who might be interested in. And we're leaving that to the private sector to what they come back with, but we've, as attachments to that expression of interest, we've attached our housing needs assessment. And in that housing needs assessment, it shows housing gaps, and a housing gap is if you're looking for a house, you can't find one, that's a gap. So there's gaps for seasonal, there's gaps for seniors, there's gaps for young families. We're sort of partially filling the gap for seniors in partnership with Eagle Valley Senior Housing Society.
That's been going on for years.
Well, it's happening there. It's funded. They have the property, it's shovel ready. So on the front half and along the side, I think staff and council will be leaning towards a proponent that shows use for people with disabilities and young families as opposed to seniors, because there's 36 units for seniors going up.
I was told that there was a busload of young adults troubled. They were asked if they wanted to go there, put on a bus out of Vancouver and brought up to the interior. And
Like-
that's a true fact that they're doing that. So there's gonna be a lot more. They can't afford even housing.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I don't have no information on that, but that has nothing, that has nothing to do with, our plan moving forward with getting a developer to look at, sending out an expression of interest.
I was thinking maybe, and this is something prejudice. Because you take a look at the 10 cities. They look terrible. It's terrible. You see it in Salmon Arm. Like. I hope you don't take.
We will do-
wrong. But teepees would be nice. They look nice. They can go into them nice.
Go ahead, Ed.
How is our water system hanging out with the population growth? Obsolete, or is it working harder? What's on it?
So our water system was built to do eight megaliters a day. It's the highest day we've ever seen through the fires a couple of years ago. We hit 5 megaliters. We have room in that plant to expand another 50%. Sitting pretty good for the water.
Is there anyone online that has any questions? Because we'll call it now. Anyone online? All right. That is a wrap for today. So recommendation that the council meeting, June 23rd. June the 14th, 23 be adjourned at 6:12. Ian? Malcolm, all in favor? We are done.